Welcome to the Life Curation podcast. I'm your host, Andrina. Together, we will explore thoughts, inspirations, and conversations that feed our soul, spark the mind, and nourish the body. Thank you so much for being here to learn and grow, and for walking this journey called life with me. Hello. Welcome to another episode to the Life Curation podcast. I'm happy you're here as always. And today is another episode where it's the opposite way around, that I get interviewed. And it's a huge honor that I am the first guest of Maja's podcast, Stories Unfolded. And it's quite a personal talk and personal insight into my current life, and also the, transition, which is a big word at the moment for me. And at the same time, it is always, because actually always and everything is in transition. So we talk about the island life that I'm currently leading, and we talk also about how I got to the island and the transition that came, and we go way back to my way from Zurich to New York to Vancouver, back to Zurich, and from corporate to yoga to health and everything in between. And yeah, I am really happy to share that with you here on the Life Curation podcast, and also keep an eye out for more episode on Maja's podcast, of course, that is linked in the bio as well. And Maja was also on my podcast, so of course we will link that episode in the show notes as well, and also some other talks where questions were asked to me. So thanks for being here as always. And just before you dive right into the conversation, we did have a few internet glitches, but it should be completely fine.
Hi, Andrina. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking your time and being my, my guinea pig for this first trial, for this first interview.
I'm super excited. Thank you for having me, Maja.
So cool. So we can already kind of place you in the map. Where are you currently located?
On La Palma, on the Canary Island.
Very nice. So I did already the introduction of how we met and everything, but now I'm just gonna do 3 quick questions, and then we can dive into your story. What is your favorite
morning routine? My favorite morning routine. There's definitely lemon water involved, and movement, and stillness in some kind of shape and form.
Very nice. Kind of following that, what time does your after this morning routine, around what time does your day start after this routine?
It's a little bit different since I'm here on the Canary Island because of time change. So, for example, if I would teach at 9 in Zurich, that's 8 o'clock in the morning here. So it's a little bit earlier. So yeah, that's probably my working day starts around 7:30.
Wow, early mornings then. So this next question is actually inspired by your own podcast. What will one always find in your fridge?
Ooh.
Dark chocolate. Sorry, we're seeing each other in the video, and you should have seen the face that Andrina just made.
Yes, dark chocolate, dark and very dark chocolate. Definitely above 92, probably above 90, but like I'm definitely above 92.
Nice. I think we're together on that one. Hey.
Definitely.
If you could choose a superpower, what would it be?
Fly.
I feel you on that one as well. So let's jump into your story. If I was meeting you for the first time, how would you describe yourself?
I love to learn. I love to explore. I love to experience things. I think I consider myself open-minded. I don't know what the English word is for begeisterungsfähig, but I think that's whatever that means. Getting excited about things.
That's a curious mind. Yeah.
Curious mind, yeah. And I think I can come across maybe reserved sometimes, but maybe that's more because sometimes I'm also shy. So I think I'm a how you call that, outgoing introvert.
Cool. I think it's super interesting because normally if you meet people for the first time and you ask them about themselves, one of the first things that they talk about is actually their jobs. And I thought it was so cool how you actually didn't talk about that. You talked about who you are. And that's, I think, something that I really appreciate, because I was expecting, like, I don't know, something else. And then you brought this and I was like, yeah, that's like the right answer. But
yeah, because I think all of that comes into our work, right? I think that a lot of people, for example, think that I'm extroverted, but because of my work. But there is like the shyness that I have that a lot of people that know me from work don't realize.
Interesting. So people know, I know about you. I mean, I know a lot about you, but people hearing, they don't know that much. So what is your work nowadays? What is your work now?
So I do coaching and mentorship, and I call that Life Curation. And it is for me a creative process, and it has a lot to do with healing and transformation. And Life Curation for me is, so curation, has two different aspects to it. We know the curation from the art aspect of it, like putting like a exhibition together or different artwork, collecting them, like, oh, what fits together and what looks cool together and what maybe complements each other. And the other aspect of curation is cure, so to heal. So for me, then it comes this creating aspect or creative aspect of healing and transformation, because I think for many people, when we talk about maybe personal development or personal growth or healing and transformation, it has a heaviness to it, or a pretty much my whole work. And in there is yoga, there's meditation, there is different types of coaching modalities, or however you want to call that, and I'm in process of the somatic experience training, so diving even deeper into the whole trauma healing. And I also have a second business, which is an online shop for accessories for aromatherapy.
Very holistic, a lot of different tentacles. So
definitely.
So people can have a bit of an idea how to imagine your work. How does a typical day for you look like nowadays?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a difficult question because of different reasons as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there is many different aspects to it because, when you're self-employed, for me, there is no 9 to 5. Like there's 9 to 5. I'm saying it as a term or as an example. Or I don't have every day the same different set appointments or set schedule or anything. So I don't really have a typical day, and that can be really exciting. And sometimes it's also hard because I'm also a person that likes structure. So I really have to give myself the structure, right? And of course, and if I have appointments, they give me the structure that maybe help me. But a typical day would be like morning routine. Then if I teach, then I teach, and then at one point, if I don't teach, I probably go with my dog first. If if I teach, then I go with my dog afterwards. And then right now, being here in La Palma, there's a lot of coordination with workers that are on the ground that need nothing or everything, needing to tell them what needs to be done, or maybe they want a coffee, And then if I have clients, of course, that then is coordinated around all that. And yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. I think as you said, in your lifestyle, it's really hard to have a typical routine, right? Because also, just so the listeners know a little bit, you're in La Palma now because you guys are making a project constructing. The house is already there, right? But you're making a new project there. But actually, your base is in Zurich, right?
Exactly.
So it's hard, like you have to kind of find a way to combine these both lifestyles. I guess you're in a transition period as well. But yeah,
absolutely.
No. And how do you so you mentioned about the structure. I'm just going to go a little bit into that because I can imagine for some people it might be a bit difficult to understand that you don't have a structure, but you do find a structure. So do you structure it, as you said, with your client meetings? Do you do that like a week in advance so you have a plan for that week, or is it something more short term?
Good question. I think for me, to go back a little bit, like when I worked in corporate, I think the structure was too much for me. And of course, then when you're self-employed, you have to give yourself the structure, right? So for me, it was a lot over the last 10 years. At the beginning, I really had to learn to because at first I was like, oh, great, now I can do whatever I want and I'm my own boss. Suddenly I realized oh, okay, right? Like I need this structure because it also gives me stability. And for example, my weekly classes or my bi-weekly appointments with my clients, or my podcast interviews, or my meeting with Nadine, who I have the online job with, those set appointments give me structure on a business level. And that I do. My weekly classes are set, right? They don't change. And Nadine and I have a fixed day. And with my coaching clients, I also schedule those in advance. So those are pretty set, but there's also within that there's lots of flexibility. I'm not my days are not full of 10 appointments. You know what I mean? But I have almost islands within the week where I know okay, those are kind of my lamppost of structure, and then I plan the rest of the week around that.
Yeah, so you actually found the perfect balance between, let's say, a corporate structured reality and completely free, whatever happens, whatever. So I guess you managed to get bits and pieces of both and kind of create your own schedule in a way that it gives you enough structure, but also enough flexibility to actually put in the things that you want to put in. That's
absolutely. And I think on a personal level, I have
my dog that gives me structure, because she gets like, I always say, like, I'm not sure who is walking who. Am I walking her, or is she walking me? But that's another structure, right? Of course, and I don't. The good thing is, I guess, I trained her in a way that she doesn't need to go out at the same time every day. But at one point in the day, there is that, right? And I have other quote unquote rules for myself that I need in a day that also then give me structure. Like, for example, I can't have every evening something planned. Like, I need to have an evening, at least 1 or 2 evenings where I have like no plans or no appointments. And I mean, here in La Palma, again, it's a little bit different, right?
It's the other way around. You need to get some days with people.
I'm fine. It's so interesting. Like, it's very interesting how things shift. Like, I don't know if it's age or if it's just different phases of life. But thinking about that, I've lived in New York and now I live on like a quote unquote deserted island. So big, so different.
So I think that's actually a good, how can I say, a trigger, not a trigger, but like a good topic to
segue.
Yeah, to go back a little bit, because you've mentioned that you've worked in corporate, but people listening to what you're doing now, this more holistic approach to everything, living in an island versus living in New York, that there's quite a big gap in there. Can you give us a little bit of a background story? Like, when, how, why did you make the shift? What is this other part of you? Who were you back then? Can you give a little bit of a context? Do you still remember?
Yeah. I don't know, like early 20s, trying to, like, I don't know, leave Switzerland desperately. And then ending up in New York. I think I really did want to leave Switzerland. And didn't want to go to the United States. Ended up in the United States. Ended up in, well, we can discuss if New York is the United States or not, but that's not a topic. And it was great. I learned so much, and I really was like the big world of, like, outside of protected Switzerland. And
what were you doing there?
I was working in hospitality management. So it was part of, while I was still studying hotel management in Switzerland, and then I went to New York, and I wanted to be away for a year and a half, and I ended up being away for 14 years. That's how life happens, right? And then I think to transition, I think there's so many different aspects of it, right? I think, I've worked in high-paced environments, corporate, and I loved it. And then at one point, but also realizing there's more to life than just hustling and bustling and trying to work more just because society is conditioned to say that's what everybody has to do. I mean, it's a little bit extreme said, but I think for me, a big shift happened when I then moved to Vancouver, because Vancouver is already much slower than New York.
You moved and also to the hospitality industry, like with a hotel or...
Exactly. But there, the first time, because in New York I was on a visa, and I was bound to the hotel. I didn't even have the freedom to think what else could I do. And then when I moved to Vancouver, I had permanent residency, and suddenly I was like, hey, I can actually do something else if I want to, because I don't have a visa. I'm not bound to a job, because in New York, the visa was bound to my job and the hotel and the employer. And there, the seed kind of was planted that, hey, what else is out there? But it still took me. Let's see. I moved to Vancouver in 2010. and I quit my corporate job 2013 to 2014. So you see, it still took like this whole time to like actually figure out, hey, what's, and of course life happens. Like there was also like, you need to make money, right? You cannot, and then I did then start my yoga teacher training, and then I did my first coaching certification. And so gradually things started to shift. So it was not like one day to the other. It was just gradually shifting. And I remember I had like these two key moments for me. Like one, I was sitting in my office at the hotel. And first of all, I like 5 minutes, like I looked at the clock and there was like, I'm like, okay, I'm doing my thing. And then I looked again, it was only 5 minutes past. I'm like, this is not possible. It cannot just be that just only 5 minutes past. And then I was like thinking, suddenly I imagined myself sitting here at the same desk like 3 years later, and I almost started crying. I was like, no, I can't do that. That's not possible. And at the same time, I was, trying to build my yoga and my coaching business. And, I was in a relationship. I had friends. I also had a dog. And it's like, you can't do everything. You can't work full time and do all these other things as well. So I decided to quit and risk it and say, like, I can always go back to hospitality if it doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm. And during this process that you said you started doing your training and you were thinking, this is not the place I want to be. I want to dedicate my time to something else. Did you know already what you wanted to accomplish back then? Like, did you have it seems like you were getting kind of the ingredients of a cake, but did you know which cake you were making or not necessarily?
It's a good question because I like to, and it's a good analogy because back then I was working, I did health coaching. So food was very important. I mean, it still is, but not in my work as much as it used to be. And I think already there came in a lot of creativity because for me, I think I had a vision, and I think that's still what's happening right now. I have a vision, but it gets adjusted along the way all the time.
So interesting. I think that's super interesting and super good as well, right? Because you have a direction, but at the same time you are flexible enough to adjust while it goes, because I
think also there is like, I know, I can take that now, and I know because it's also part of my personality, but I also know that there were times in my life where it was like, oh, I wish I would have this like one thing, single focus, right? And no matter what, done, right? And I'm like, oh, but this is also really cool. Ooh, oh, look at and yes, it's cool, but right. So there's different sides to it, and of course, then it comes also back to then pulling myself together. Okay, is this working towards where you want to go? Staying open that to it.
Oh, we just got a little bit of a internet break there. Can you repeat the last sentence only?
Of course. Yeah, I think it's this. For me, what's important is that I have a what can I call? I don't want to call it a goal, but an inspiration or a vision or a direction. But and it's also a goal, but it also that may change. Maybe I at this point think like, okay, the road is going this way, but actually maybe it's going a little bit more to the left and maybe around the curve, and then it's gonna go suddenly like, oh, wait a minute. Actually, I now want to go there and not where I thought to go.
And can I ask you how you deal with that? In the sense of, is it something that you just kind of, is it okay? Or do you sometimes question like, okay, but actually I want to go there. Why is it going this way or not?
I have both days. Some days it's sometimes I'm like, where, what, how?
I guess that it also makes it a little bit fun, right?
and then some days it's very clear, and it's yeah. So I do have both. I think for me it's also a lot about how I want to feel in my life, or in my day, in my week, right? How do I not only what I want to do, but also how I want to feel.
That's super powerful, yeah. So you mentioned that now you're also a little bit in a transition moment. Like, I'm gonna name some of the stuff that you're doing. So you have the Oil Inspiration podcast, you have different offerings as a coach, EFT, and then you're doing the somatic experiencing training, and now you also have the La Isla project. So it's a lot of stuff. And you mentioned you have a direction, you have a path, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. It's not a goal, but not goal. What is it like? Can you share what is your vision, or what is the cake that you're making at the moment?
Yeah, I think one of the things for now is the listeners to really realize, I've this La Isla project, it's like 3 months old, so it is, or young, so baby project. So it is, like you said, it is transition, and I think it will be transition for a while. And I think the important thing is to be in the transition and to ride the wave of the transition. That's for me right now, I think is the lesson and the learning, and how can I balance both worlds and all these different, like you call them, tentacles, right? So, and also there to give it time for that to settle a little bit within the transition, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think you also
to find again like routines and structure that
Sorry, no, I was just going to add that besides being many different projects, it's also a geographical question as well, that is added to the thing that you didn't have it before, right?
Exactly. And on that aspect, for me, what's really important for me is that it's not about flying back and forth from La Palma to Zurich. Like, that's on so many levels against my values. So it's more, staying in both places longer, and not like a weekend here and there in the extreme case, right? Which is also better for my personality because it's calmer. Right? Because when I'm here, then I can settle in, and when I'm in Zurich, I can be there. So it's, but going back to your question about my vision. For me here, this land, it's just, I just see myself like walking here and like picking my own food from my garden, from my land, like really working and being with the resources of nature, but not only for myself, but for others, like people around that contribute, but that also that it's not that it's like a community place, but it's like, for example, right now we have this woman from Australia here she's putting her magic a give and take, and so it's like a co-creation between different people. So that's a vision for this land, and that it's going to be a place to grow. So a place that can grow, nature can grow, I personally can grow, other people can grow. That's a vision for here. And for, in general, I want to have an impact in the world. I want to have an impact with people. I want to empower people. I want to, I that's already part of my work, but that's, also that growing and also in different forms, maybe that's going to change again, right? Like impact can have very different aspects to it in different phases, right? Yeah.
That's beautiful. I even got goosebumps when you were talking about La Isla. Like you really, your eyes, they were there. I could see it. Like it was super beautiful. But I think it's, I mean, as you said, right, you are making an impact already, but it's beautiful to see that you have this aspiration and this dedication to even do more of that.
Yeah, and just to go back a little bit to one of your earlier questions, like in terms of having a vision, like honestly, like a year ago, if you would have told me a year ago where I'm at now, I would have been like, what? Like I had no idea.
But you had the vision already. You didn't know that you were going to be there, but you had that vision already because we talked about it.
Absolutely. And I remember, like, I like, you know, around the change of the year, I guess. I don't do like, you know, New Year's resolution, but I like in terms of reflection, I like to like think, okay, what were the words for like last year and what were the words for, what are words for the coming year? And I remember last year, I said, I want to think outside the box. Like I want to open myself up to things that I cannot even grasp, that I don't even see on the horizon. And then this happened.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's yeah, it's super cool. And I think that also answers a little bit already one of my last questions. There's still one before the last, but which is a little bit kind of this Disney dream, right? Which is kind of what you envision. And I think the way you said it, it already shows. I'm guessing that's one of the things, at least.
Yeah. Yes. And you know, like for me, like I mean, we don't have that many edible plants yet, but just, I mean, if I walk outside, I can walk outside here and like go on my tree and pick a lemon. I mean, for me, that's luxury.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. And to like have energy because the sun is shining all the time. So why not use the, you know, energy from the sun? That's for me. That stuff like that. I think it's just makes me really like, so yeah, feeling also empowered. And I want to share that empowerment in however way and form, shape and form with also clients and communities and friends and loved ones. And empowerment for me is it's an important word, and I do that, but I want to do it even more.
That's amazing. So from what you said, in a few years we won't see you in Zurich anymore, will we?
I do like Zurich, so you know.
Probably less and less, I'm guessing.
You know, it's really interesting. Like that, I think that's like so many, you know, people ask that, are you gonna move? I'm like, I don't know.
Well, you're open, and that's the important thing. Just let things flow as they have to. But I guess you're definitely already in a really, really good path. So since I mentioned, I mean, you answered already the last question, so I'm just going to do the question before the last, as the last one. If you could give one advice to your younger self, what would it be?
I think it goes right into that, into the unknowing. Like, it's okay to not know. And it's also okay to say, I don't know. And to also give myself permission to think and feel about things, not having to make decisions right away. Like being okay to, yeah, I need to think about it. I need to sleep over it. I don't know.
That's so good.
Because I did, and I still do have a tendency to get really excited about things, and then I say yes very fast, and then suddenly I'm like, oof,
why?
Too much. And to trust that the answers will come, that the clarity will come, and sometimes it takes a while, and then sitting in that uncertainty and then in that maybe unknowing, that can be tricky. But I think that's I've learned that, and I'm still learning that. So that would be something one of the probably many things I would tell myself.
But I think that one is such an important one, and one that I'm sure everyone can implement more in their lives. We get the tendency to get a bit anxious when we don't know things, but as you said, there is a beauty in that, actually, right? And the answers will come when they have to come at the end. Yeah. So thank you so much, Andrina, for being here, for not here but there. As we have a bit of an ocean between us. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for all these valuable insights as well. And I'm super curious to see where this path is going to take you.
Me too. And thank you, my dear.
Well, if you're listening to that now, thank you for sticking around all the way. I did also mention that I have a retreat coming up and a vision board workshop and manifestation workshop. So a little bit of marketing here. Check it out. It's also linked in the show notes. And of course, as I mentioned, see and listen Maja and also look at her photography. Amazing stuff. And, you know, those magic 5 stars and the review is helpful for me. It's helpful for Maja, and it's all also helpful to our guests. So do it. Talk soon. Bye.